Hey everybody, welcome to this impromptu full moon in Capricorn reading. So this will essentially engulf the energies of the period of the 12th of July, 13th of July, through, well, 2 weeks after that, which would take us through to about the 26th, 27th of the month, where we will be in Leo season. So this full moon, of course, in Capricorn brings to fruition what we introduced into our life for contemplation with the new moon in Cancer. And through Cancer season, we have been focused on our feelings of wealth, our feelings of wellness, our feelings of love and balance and emotional stagnancy versus emotional growth. And, you know, Cancer season is really bizarre. I just have discussed this with you before, but for me personally, I had a nervous breakdown during Cancer season. So for me, I do generally look at it as being a time where if there is any internal turmoil, it will need to be handled. And subsequently, I've become a little traumatized by that personally. I don't know what your personal experience of that is, but there is a very insular energy to Cancer season, specifically because we have to figure out how not to fall out of alignment. Obviously, I'm no longer in such a state of mind or place in my life in general, and so I'm not likely to experience that, but at the same time, we're all provoked by those imbalances, by force of habit, by historical record, by simple cyclical thinking. I mean, we are creatures of habit, and we're also, obviously this is all based around astrology, the zodiac wheel, the cycle of life. So, of course, we associate certain times of the year with certain things. Uh, so there has been a lot of intensity in the last week, a lot of Mars energy as it shifted into Taurus, where it is less exalted, but efficient nonetheless in and grounding our drive to push forward, to change, to empower ourselves. Um, when those changes take place from one sign to another, there's always an awkwardness. I mean, not always, because some signs are much more compatible, but in this case, we moved into a very different energy. We had been in a forward thrust, and then sort of that aggression then didn't have any channel to go to any longer, and so it kind of became bottled up, and you may have felt a lot of aggression within yourself, particularly towards your environment, irritability from the way that other people behave. It does tend to manifest in the collective, subconsciously, and those of us that are trying to be conscious of it um, become carried away by it regardless, right? Um, so what had happened for me with Mars moving into Taurus was that my frustrations, my um, really my driving force became much more insular. It became much more, um, much quieter and more internal. Of course, we've also just this past weekend, when I'm recording this, We've had the Sun squaring Chiron, which brings up remnants of um, unhealed aspects of ourselves, or parts that we have healed or we're in the process of healing, but that still have rough edges, you know. So you put all of that together and you're bound to have a bit of emotional turmoil, stirring the pot, so to speak. And a lot of it comes down to the Capricorn Cancer axis, which is how you feel versus how you adhere to or submit to the world around you, the systems around you, the rules, the um, structures. Um, and Capricorn is not particularly emotional, which means with this full moon, we face that dichotomy. We face the need to find balance. What is the full moon? It's always about letting go of what doesn't serve us, right? In order to make room for the intentionality of growth. And um, so I believe if you want some form of intentionality around a commitment through this full moon, if you do a ceremony or just cerebrally commit yourself to something, that is really what we're looking for. And I think it's all about balance. I think it's all about finding the fusion of those two, essentially because they come from within. If we're stepping out of duality, then we're no longer in that position where we have to see authority as external and our feelings as internal. They become one of the same, right? For example, in doing my meditation, and I think I may have even shared this in a previous video, I find myself in meditation, even though I invoke certain um, energies, entities, and whatever you want to call your spirit guides, and the guides from the angelic realm, protectors, however you want to look at that energy force. Really integrating more and more, and it's become more and more apparent in Cancer season with the internal growth, the internal emotionalization, that these forces exist within, and that any of these ritualistic aspects, through paganism, however you would look at these traditions, they are mere portals for manifestation of it's a way of streamlining the process, but ultimately, of course, um, in a very Nikolai Tesla kind of way, we come to a better understanding the more we move along on our journey, that all of that is within us. The energy force is within us. Everything that we can create is within us. We are stunted. We are brainwashed into seeing ourselves as being impotent, and requiring the outside to take care of us. Um, to keep us in line. But of course, what does that mean? It means that we literally um, cut our own wings, right? So this is the energy that I am feeling around this. And the cards are pretty metaphysical in nature this week. Um, so I guess I should just get right into them, because I know that I'm planning to get this done and then watch a movie afterwards, as I rearrange my entire apartment and have set myself up in a way where I plan to have more self-care through um, giving myself permission to return to um, perhaps more traditional forms of entertainment, good cinema, for example. Um, Not just looking, I've spent a lot of time over the last few years, and I'm sure you have too, looking at anything um, of the material realm as being superficial and not serving our higher purpose on this journey. And there's been that need to be focused on learning all the time, which is very Capricornian as well. um, and then the Cancer energy is there to kind of remind us that it's in the sweet nothingness of relief, um, that we can very often attain our greatest healing. And we have to give ourselves that permission too, to not see everything as consequential. How can you live in the moment if you're constantly seeing everything as consequential, right? And that's another one of those paradigm shifts that's required at this time, that is a part of this process, perhaps. So, I'll start with our Spirit Animal Oracle card, as I always do. And I'll have to take my glasses off because I can't read with my glasses on. The Spirit Animal Oracle card of the week is Horse Spirit. Sorry, it's a little dark in here. You know me, I love it to be dark. You can't really see that at all. So you'll just see a very impressionistic image there. Freedom is yours, Horse Spirit. You know what? Maybe what I'll do, excuse me for leaning over like this, but I will light a candle. It'll give us a little bit more light. Here I am in the background. Might have been a little bit better if I'd done that before, but there we go. Now let's try again. That's better. A little bit, anyway. When Horse Spirit appears, you are gifted with the spirit of movement and freedom. It is a time for travel and adventure, whether that means a trip somewhere or taking a different type of journey, one of freedom of choice. Horse Spirit reminds you that no matter the circumstances, you have free will and choices that can take you far away to a better place, a better situation, a better state of being. For there is no one but you to rein in your will to make a different decision. You are capable of making powerful choices that will affect you for a long time to come. Horses are social animals and known to be a friend to mankind, willing to carry us forward when we need it. Horse Spirit reminds you that help will be available to you whenever you need it, and companions will be by your side wherever you choose to go, whatever direction you choose to travel. Life is an adventure, and Horse Spirit wants you to know that whatever choices you make, you have great spirit within, invisible, yet holding you up and always walking by your side. If your inquiry is about a relationship, you can set your heart free to experience love in all forms. Spirit whispers to you that the gift of freedom is yours if you allow yourself to break out of your perfectionism and stubbornness, make a move, and enjoy the freedom of letting go of the need to control. The protection message, because I think we could always use that too. Are you feeling stuck? Has your spirit been broken by challenges you have faced? Your current choices may not seem the best, but you are not seeing the clearing ahead when you can break free and run. Whatever your choices right now, they can lead you to exhilarating freedom, so trust the guidance of Spirit. Horse Spirit is here to tell you that adventure calls, and you will soon realize your power is greater than you think. Perhaps your frustration and feelings of being fenced in are the result of being too much on your high horse. unwilling to come down to earth and join the herd that wants to support you. Being in control and being in charge can be overrated. It's time to loosen up, drop the reins, let go, and prance with others just for the fun of it. And of course, you know, horses jump fences, and um, but it takes a lot for them to want that kind of freedom, right? If horses are fenced in, usually they become content within. Um, but we are breaking free of the Capricornian um, restrictions always, but particularly this time. So we have to think about that. Where are we fenced in? Where are we not allowing ourselves the permission to be in our true essence, to be authentically 100% ourselves, making ourselves small, to not be able to um, live up to our own full potential, but instead trying to live up to somebody else's expectations, or more often than not, what we think somebody else's expectations are. I do get a strong feeling because of the Capricornian vibe versus the Cancerian inner process emotionally that this is probably something to do with, it's probably a more utilitarian aspect of life, work, profession, how you, with Mars and Taurus also, how you harness your earning capacity, your ability, your capacity to build in the material realm, and what gets in our way. And our soul journey cards pretty much explain to us a lot of that. And this is here. Forgiveness. We always get this card at the moment. We keep getting it, should I say. And, forgiveness coming up as the blockage. So, what we're not doing. And a lot of the time, let's remember, we're not forgiving ourselves, right? Of course, that entails forgiving others in the sense of not being so focused on being hurt by others or affected by their um, lack of mindfulness, their lack of consideration, their lack of generosity of spirit. That's very common, especially in our modern world. And I see it a lot in people, even people that I know and that I consider myself close to, can very often um, seem very distant or disconnected to me. And well, obviously, I don't get angry about that. There is, there's a triggering, you know, which is also a Saturn Capricorn thing, where it's, you immediately go back to the structured thoughts that you have in place from past experiences with probably those people or maybe somebody else, and you're transferring it. But this led to this. This is how I felt as a result of this in the past. When I wasn't empowered, when I didn't have the freedom, I responded to this in this way, and that becomes your natural um, response, even though it doesn't serve you. So, forgiveness. I acknowledge that harboring resentment blocks the flow of love. And that is very true, because it becomes resentment. It becomes something that takes, it distracts us from the truth of the love in our heart, which is what the goal of Cancer season is, right? So I will read the forgiveness message. You can never flow with your natural energy of love unless you release the negative energy of hate, anger, intolerance, or blame. Every soul in your path has free will, and you have no control over that. What you do have control over is how you react to the manifestations of others' free will. Holding on to that negative energy will strengthen karmic cycles, and forgiveness can break that pattern. The most important person you must learn to forgive is always yourself. Blaming yourself for failures blocks the natural flow of love, which will attract all good things into your life. Right? And second to that card, which is more what forgiveness leads to for us at this time, particularly between, as I said at the very beginning of this reading, the energies between Cancer and Capricorn, and trying to reconcile what comes as a result of that temperance process of those two energetic extremes. We have balance, we also, there you go, balance. I bring a state of perfect harmony into my world, and I do so without judgment. So strong emphasis on letting go of resentment and judgment. Balance means bringing a sense of stability and wholeness into every area of your life. Many times when you look at a situation objectively, you will resonate with one side more than the other. Try not to view either as good or bad, but simply recognize that it is. The true nature of the scales of balance is to give both sides of a situation your equitable, objective perspective. It can be difficult to understand the side that you don't relate to, but that is a lesson in itself. What is it about you, that prevents you from giving both sides of the coin your non-judgmental assessment? This situation or person has been placed in your path to teach you that everyone has his or her own unique, authentic life story, and you must put yourself in that person's shoes to really understand his or her motivation. Balance is a godly virtue, and if it is struck, you will reap the benefits of insight and compassion. And of course, this brings to mind Don Miguel Ruiz's Four Agreements, in particular, the one of never taking anything personally and always putting yourself in the position to ask yourself, rather than jumping to the conclusion of how your ego is responding to somebody else's behavior, instead, what is happening in their mind, their life, their heart, where they are struggling between the Capricornian and Cancer energy within. You see what I mean? Or whatever other extreme there may be in other axis seasons. So, important message there, I think. And I did just pull a Sacred Destiny Oracle card for the sake of it, and we got Enlightenment. And I do think that that caps that off to sort of give us the understanding of what forgiveness and balance really lead to, right? Getting into our tarot spread for the next 2 weeks, I pulled a 6-card reading with clarifiers and one underlying energy card. That I also took a clarifier from our Osho Zen Tarot deck. We got 2 cards, and the clarifiers are from the Hermetic Tarot that I haven't used in quite some time. With the exception of our outcome card, I took a clarifier from, again, the Osho Zen Tarot card because they have bigger implication messages. So, our underlying energy of the week. The Two of Pentacles. Again, it's a duality energy here, and I think considering what we've just been talking about, and considering that we're talking about the difficulty of the reconciliation of Capricorn and Cancer, much more so for me than any of the other extremes, in all honesty. Even with my own rising being Taurus, and obviously its opposite being Scorpio, so my North Node being Scorpio, I come to understand the fluidity of that. Whereas Cancer Capricorn, this is much more of a trigger within the 3D existence that we are experiencing, right? So, um, so that's the energy, the Two of Pentacles. Of course, the Two of Pentacles, while a juggling energy, it also means that we can be empowered in our understanding of two extremes. So we don't necessarily have to be lost and like losing, trying to keep our balance because we're off kilter. It can simply be the acknowledgement of the duality and therefore the desire to move beyond that and to understand it, explore it fully so that we can move beyond it. So again, the two cards that we got from the Osho Zen tarot deck are two extremities because, and again, it gives us more insight into what this process is that we're going through because we have existence, which is the Fool card. I will read that, of course. And we also have mind, which I don't remember which card that is, but it is of the swords, obviously. And so let's find those cards and see what those extremes are and how we can navigate them and work through them. I'll hold it up again. This naked figure sits on the lotus leaf of perfection, gazing at the beauty of the night sky. She knows that home is not a physical place in the outside world, but an inner quality of relaxation and acceptance. The stars, the rocks, the trees, the flowers, fish and birds, all are our brothers and sisters in this dance of life. We human beings tend to forget this as we pursue our own private agendas and believe we must fight to get what we need. But ultimately, our sense of separateness is just an illusion manufactured by the narrow preoccupations of the mind. Now is the time to look at whether you are allowing yourself to receive the extraordinary gift of feeling at home wherever you are. And that is very Cancerian, I'll add. If you are, be sure to take time to savor it so you can deepen it and remain with and let it remain with you. If, on the other hand, you've been feeling like the world is out to get you, it's time to take a break. Go outside tonight and look at the stars. So it's interesting that I hadn't even really thought about that. Cancerian energy is very much surrounding the home, of course, and there I was at the peak of that energy over this weekend, rearranging my apartment. And it really, I can't show you obviously right now what I did, and it wouldn't really be of any interest to you. But I have lived in this apartment for not quite a year and a half, but not far off. And honestly, it was perfunctory, and I didn't really make any effort to make it more of a home. And so it's interesting, right, that that would happen at this time. But I would take that plunge and make that effort, and it felt very organic. Um, you are not accidental. Existence needs you. Without you, something will be missing in existence, and nobody can replace it. That's what gives you dignity. That's the whole existence. Oh, sorry, that the whole existence will miss you. The stars and sun and moon, the trees and birds and earth, everything in the universe will feel a small place is vacant, which cannot be filled by anybody except you. This gives you a tremendous joy, a fulfillment that you are related to existence, and existence cares for you. Once you are clean and clear, you can see tremendous love falling on you from all dimensions. And again, in practicing forgiveness and seeking out that balance, and ultimately that is enlightenment, you can receive love, and you can be in positions like, for example, you know me, always like complaining about something about my job or whatever, and it's just like, I can fall into that energy of projecting. Yes, so there might be things that are not ideal for me um, in other people's behaviors or their perception or their way of working or their way of moving about anything. But um, I I don't I have a choice not to turn that into something that is increasingly negative, right? And that's really what the trajectory that I was beginning to find myself on this last week. In fact, it's been a bit of a seesaw in that way. But again, I'm not going to get into that because I bore myself talking about that kind of stuff. It is the Page of Swords, mind. So let's see, which would make sense because the page is the young, undeveloped aspect of the thought journey. So um, 70. Oh God, maybe a problem. Just looking at that image within itself terrifies me, so I will show it to you again, but I won't hold it up. I'll just do the first paragraph. This is what happens when we forget that the mind is meant to be a servant and start to allow it to run our lives. The head is filled with mechanisms. The mouth is ranting and raving, and the whole surrounding atmosphere is being polluted by the factory of arguments and opinions. But wait, you say, the mind is what makes us human. It's the source of all progress, all great truths. If you believe that, try an experiment. Go into your room, shut the door, and turn on a tape recorder, and give yourself total permission to say whatever is on your mind. If you really allow it to all come out without any censorship or editing, you'll be amazed at the amount of rubbish that comes spewing forth. The Page of Clouds is telling you that somebody somewhere is stuck in a head trip. Take a look and make sure it isn't you. This is the situation of your head. I see cycle handles and pedals and strange things that you have gathered from everywhere. Such a small head, and no space to live in. And that rubbish goes on moving in your head. Your head goes on spinning and weaving. It keeps you occupied. Just think what kinds of thoughts go on inside your mind. One day just sit, close your doors, and write down for half an hour whatsoever is passing in your mind. And you will understand what I mean, and you will be surprised what goes on inside your mind. It remains in the background, it is constantly there, it surrounds you like a cloud. With this cloud, you cannot know reality, you cannot attain to spiritual perception. This cloud has to be dropped, and it is just with your decision to drop it that it will disappear. You are clinging to it. The cloud is not interested in you. Remember that. And of course, it's also important to remember that the Page of Swords in the traditional tarot is the student. So, of course, in order to be a good student, you really do have to cast aside what makes you think that you know everything, right? In order to receive new information, or at least to tweak the things that you already do have established as part of your vernacular, enough to be able to allow further seasoning, let's say. So, an interesting point to make for this time. And of course, a lot of this will shift when we get to Leo season. Um, um, where we start, I mean, we don't have we don't have any bad cards here. We just have an interesting journey here. Because we've got a couple of reversals, which to me, I have decided that I will read reversals going forth, but reversals to me are an indication that rather than them being external, they are internal. Not the way that some people read it in that Aleister Crowley kind of evil witch, not witchcraft, because that's a stupid word to use for that, but darkness, you know. Um, the Ten of Cups. And of course, starting a reading with the Ten of Cups is pretty interesting because it implies that we already have a fullness of an emotional cycle, that we're perhaps in a place of contentment, and that it's perhaps the contentment within itself that is becoming, if not stagnant, um, inspiring us to have the itch to move into something else, to emotionally level up into a new challenge. And I do feel for many people that will be around relationship, um, being able to, after very long periods of time of being very guarded, opening back up to the magical possibilities of the unknown emotionally, rather than um, being walled in, um, because of what we've already talked about, right? And of course, it doesn't have to be um, romantic or a fusional relationship, even. It can be just being able to invite a better quality of friendship, even within the friends that you already have, or the family members that you already have, or whatever else. Um, so this comes with the Page of Pentacles. And of course, the Page of Pentacles, another page here. In this case, that's the furthering of that inkling that I have, that we are at the pivoting point towards starting a new emotional journey. In other words, take stock of where you are at the moment emotionally in your life, or where you have been in the recent past. As we shift beyond this full moon in Capricorn, we will be going into a new legacy path of emotional growth. Where we're challenged right now, we have the Eight of Pentacles, which of course is traditionally work, but it's also craftsmanship. It's how we go about doing our work. It's how we go about building our legacy, and in this case, material legacy, our three-dimensional imprint. And it comes clarified by the Four of Pentacles. So the Four of Pentacles indicates a lack of openness to being inspired, to receiving what is on offer to us, putting blockages in place, perhaps spending more time focusing on, in our Two of Pentacles duality, on one side of the pentacle balance, and therefore losing the opportunity to hone in on what's on the other side. The balance is a balancing act. Balance within itself means that whenever we feel that one thing is out of alignment, that we have the capacity to recognize it and therefore correct it immediately, right? That is the mastery of enlightenment. Because you're never just in a stagnant, static state, Our past energy, we had the sun reversed. Now, the sun reversed, as I said, the way I read reversals now, because this is a newly developed insight that I had through meditation. This implies the process up until this point, and this ties in with this legacy, this Ten of Cups legacy that we've reached and that we're moving beyond, that this is a Ten of Cups that is internal. This is reaching a place after all this work that we've been doing, of finally coming to a place of fullness of recognition that our flaws and our qualities all make us uniquely who we are, and that we embrace that, and that all of those different aspects of us are kind of like our own little children, and we nurture them, we take care of them, we have nurtured them and taken care of them, and it's almost like they're about to fly the coop, right? And that means that we have to prepare ourselves for something new. But that sun reversed is really that feeling of what we would associate with the sun externally, that shines on our life and everything's beautiful and childlike and magical. But within, coming to that place where perhaps a lot of that negativity, for somebody like myself speaking about that recently in this video with you and other times that I've talked about it, having gone through a mental health crisis. I know many of you have been through a mental health crisis in your life at one time or another. And it's almost like we got the key to understanding that all of this is just a part of who we are. And when we embrace it and we accept it and we don't resist it and we forgive ourselves and we forgive others, we shine from within, right? Now, the two clarifiers that we had on that, interestingly, again, which is kind of giving me the idea of, in this case, what challenges that inner light. Seven of Cups, which is an implication of distraction of riches. In other words, well, I'll give a literal example. For me, I'm earning a lot more money than I have in a long time, and I found myself in the embarrassment of riches. I mean, I'm exaggerating, I'm hardly rich, but sort of coming to an understanding that what is the point of having more money, more material stability, if you don't have anything to do with that? It's just a number on a bank account. It's just yes, there's certain comforts of knowing that you can pay your bills, that you can, you don't have to nickel and dime when you go to the store. You can buy yourself some clothes. You can have a little bit of a home improvement project or whatever. But if it's just for you, yes, that's a comfort. That reinforces like a Ten of Pentacles energy more, or that sun reversed. But ultimately, you come to a place of the Seven of Cups, which is where your emotions don't really get fulfilled for lack of an understanding of the embarrassment of choices is false. Because in those cups in the traditional tarot, you have some that have, yes, some have castles, but some have dragons, some have rotten cabbage or whatever, It's like, in other words, we can think that we have a bunch of choices and opportunities, but if we're really in flow with ourselves in our heart, we don't. It comes down to a simplification, and we'll get there because our next card will give even more insight into that. But again, seconded by that Two of Pentacles that we have as a clarifier here, bringing us back to the underlying energy. So we now understand where that underlying energy comes from. It's like the inner contentment has now reached a point where it's stopped us from expanding externally to the fullness of our capacity, to our emotional maturity level, and subsequently we've been distracting ourselves. Um, Again, contrary to what I was saying at the beginning of this about Cancerian energy and being in the womb of your home and allowing yourself to watch a movie for entertainment or whatever, here I'm talking about distraction in the sense of not paying attention to your emotional center, not paying attention to what actually is good for you emotionally, and perhaps even making choices that are not good for you emotionally. Um, uh, which comes into our environment card, which is the Lovers. again, the lovers, not to denigrate the notion of it being romantic, but it is traditionally more about a choice, a divine choice, being in the position of knowledge and therefore being in the place where the choices that you make, the choice that you make is not a choice, because if there are two options, you would choose the one that serves your higher purpose. Um, this may have been with the Two of Pentacles energy, that is kind of a lower frequency version of the Lover's card, being in the position where the lack of balance comes from being too focused on one thing. For example, for me, having been way too focused on the material because I've been so much in a survival on a survival trajectory for the last few years of my life, that I've programmed myself to think in that way. So I'm focused on, money and making sure that I am secure, and the walls were built, when nothing else can come in, because that's all I'm focused on, right? So there's that, and it was clarified by the Hermit card. So ironically, it's a reinforcement of the idea that environmentally, if you're finding yourself in the position where you are distracted by things that are not to 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 the advantage of your higher purpose and your soul, um, the answer is within. Perhaps taking again that sun in reverse energy is a feeling of fulfillment within, that then of the Ten of Cups leads to that, that then we have to carry that within almost like a flame, it's like the Olympic flame that you're carrying through your own life onto the next um, race, um, and acknowledging that that is within you is what the hermit represents. The hermit, of course, carries the lantern externally, but that light is within him too. He is the light when in his lantern. He is a guide. And sometimes if you're seeking too much outside of yourself, Seven of Cups energy there, you forget that you are a light. You forget that you are a guide. You forget that that is what your divine purpose is. You that's watching this, because it means that you think about that, right? That you have the conscience, that you were born into this world by choice in order to become that. um, I told you it would get metaphysical. Um, so this in turn, this is our future energy now, which I'm very happy to see, that our Two of Wands energy becomes a choice, a real choice of inspiration in the world, that we make the choice to inject inspiration and um, drive, ambition, but magic, you know, um, determination into our choice, because we recognize what is right for us. Um, with the star, which is the ultimate wish card, and it's the ultimate balance card because it's being in the flow of the universe. And again, nothing could be more clear than our two clarifiers that came out on those cards, because those two cards came out together, and then two clarifiers came out. We have the Ace of Swords, which is standing in your own truth, but also receiving new knowledge from the universe to carry you forth in this determination. And the Magician, The magician, of course, being the reminder that you carry all of the elements within you in order to manifest your higher purpose. So whatever this next journey is, this next emotional journey after the release of Cancer season, after the release of Capricornian remnants of control, we find ourselves with our outcome cards, which are beautiful and logical. Wheel of Fortune, and the Rebirth card. And I know we've had the Rebirth card before, but I will, of course, read it because it will sum up this entire reading. And that is the Ten of Cups, by the way. So we start with the Ten of Cups and we end with the Ten of Cups. So how's that for some serendipity? Where am I? Sorry, it's not the Ten of Cups. It's the Ten of Swords. Which is an interesting card in this deck because the Ten of Swords in this deck is not at all the downtrodden yet rebirthing figure of the traditional tarot. So anyway, if I could actually find it, that would help. I just got distracted because for some reason, I was trying to make sense of the idea of shifting from Ten of Cups to Ten of Swords, and then I'm thinking to myself, well, that, or Ten of Clouds as it's called in this, that is actually a perfect analogy from the perspective that clouds are water and cups are water. So interestingly, I'd never thought about that in the Osho deck. So anyway, I'm just going to read rather than going through my own inner process with you. Here's that card for you to focus on. This card depicts the evolution of consciousness as it is described by Friedrich Nietzsche in his book, Thus Spake Zarathustra. He speaks of the three levels of camel, lion, and child. The camel is sleepy, dull, self-satisfied. He lives in delusion, thinking he's a mountain peak, but he really is concerned with others' opinions, that he hardly has any energy of his own. Sorry, I'm going to read that again because I really botched it, and I can't hold this up. I'm sorry. You just better take it in now because I can't read and hold it up. There's a lot going on, and I'm not managing. He speaks of this is Nietzsche. He speaks of the three levels of camel, lion, and child. The camel is sleepy, dull, self-satisfied. He lives in delusion, thinking he's a mountain peak, but really he is so concerned with others' opinions that he hardly has any energy of his own. That's what happens in the material world, right? When you're out of a balance and focused only on the coin, Emerging from the camel is the lion. When we realize we've been missing life, we start saying no to the demands of others. The lion, of course, Leo season being upon us, maybe this is an indication of where we're headed. We move out of the crowd, alone and proud, roaring our truth. Ace of Swords. That clarifier there. But this is not the end. Finally, the child emerges, neither acquiescent nor rebellious, but innocent and spontaneous and true to his own being. Whatever the space you're in right now, sleepy and depressed or roaring and rebellious, be aware that it will evolve into something new if you allow it. It is a time of growth and change. So as we started with that Ten of Cups, end of the legacy of emotion, this makes perfect sense. And it is about allowing that to happen, right? In Zen, you are coming from nowhere and you are going to nowhere. You are just now here, neither coming nor going. Everything passes by you. Your consciousness reflects it, but it does not get identified. When a lion roars in front of a mirror, do you think the mirror roars? Or when the lion is gone, a child comes dancing, the mirror completely forgets about the lion and starts dancing with the child. Do you think the mirror dances with the child? The mirror does nothing, it simply reflects. Your consciousness is only a mirror. Neither do you come nor do you go. Things come and go. You become young, you become old, you are alive, you are dead. All these states are simply reflections in an eternal pool of consciousness. Well, what more can I say? That's way beyond my scope of integration. So I look forward to joining you energetically with that full moon that lies ahead, which is the super full moon, and it's the biggest moon of the year, or certainly, and I don't know if it makes a difference in the north or the southern hemisphere, but in the United States, well, where I live, I won't be seeing it anyway, because it's like going to be in the like morning. So, um, but yeah, let's flow together, let's release together, and this is a lot of stuff, but it's like interesting, isn't it? Because it's almost like you can feel the level that we've leveled up just in the way that the message comes out, that it's no longer, there's no victimhood in any of this, right? There's just reminders of where we drift off of our path and how to get back on it. So, um, namaste.